My name is Mike Gibbons. I'm a singer, songwriter, and ocean lover living in San Francisco, California. In February, I read an article in the New York Times about surfing in Cuba. I couldn't believe that surfing had been banned there for years because the Cuban government was historically concerned about people trying to paddle to Florida. Despite easing laws, Cuban surf pioneers have continued to struggle because of a complete lack of access to modern surf equipment. One of these surfers, Eduardo Valdez, started a program along with a group of Australian surfers several years ago called Royal 70. They distribute donated surfboards to Cuban kids and adults who are serious about learning to surf. Like a lot of surfers, I believe that surfing makes me a better person, challenges me, and makes me feel connected to my body and to the ocean in ways that transcend simply being in the water and riding waves. After reading that New York Times article, I wanted to see what I could do to help Eduardo and those surfers out in Cuba. So I called my friends at Waterlust and we set out to get some equipment into Cuba. This is what happened. There's a vivid vitality that buzzes throughout Havana and its people. It's beautifully dilapidated in the manner of an elegant, elderly face, all textured and weathering, maintaining a sort of stately nobility despite the years of wear and tear. The city's full of wistful, nostalgic reminders of a bygone era in our own history. It's an incredibly romantic place, not to discount the years of struggle and sacrifices endured. Eduardo's enthusiasm for surfing is obvious. He has the words "Never Stop Surfing" tattooed on his arm. His close surf buddies share the same tattoo. Despite living just 90 miles from the US, Eduardo grew up shaping surfboards out of the foam from 60-year-old refrigerators and scraps of boatyard fiberglass. They planed the foam using coat hangers and used candles for surf wax. Eventually, even that refrigerator foam became scarce. Although there were unfortunately no waves breaking during the week we visited, it was more than enough to just connect with this community and hear their story firsthand.
We have the idea, like the new generation of kids, every time asking, what is this? Or asking about surfing to us. And we are trying to teach them to surf, but to respect the environment. So trying to create a new culture of respect for the ocean.
It struck me that this guy has made a significant difference in the lives of quite a few people. He's distributed over 200 surfboards around the country at this point and is a huge part of Cuba's budding surfing community. I couldn't help but smile to see these boards find such a deserving home. It was difficult to adapt myself into the perspective of the culture and history I had just stepped into. Having been born in 1979, I grew up knowing little more about Cuba than what was presented in US history class. From what I witnessed, Cubans have undoubtedly gone through a great deal of struggle. But there's a sense of hope in the air that the times are slowly changing. I know that by traveling to Cuba, I'm walking a fragile line. I don't mean to disrespect those who have suffered and been oppressed by the Castro regime. The world is so complicated sometimes, oftentimes too complicated for our own good. It's easy for us to focus on a few cultural differences rather than all that we have in common. I hope to see the day that Eduardo no longer needs donated boards, that Cubans no longer feel it's necessary to flee their homeland, that the imaginary but devastating line we've drawn between the US and Cuba dissolves. I don't know when that will happen. Until then, never stop surfing.